some Republicans who have been facing some heat, like Congressman Rich McCormick of Georgia, about these cuts, said he has some advice for Elon Musk.
If he just takes a half step back, we'll do something that I think can be compassionate and at the same time something that's impactful when it comes to saving America's money that's hard-earned and hard-spent.
What do you mean half step back?
He's admitted to things. He said, look, we've done some things wrong, but we're learning.
You just watched Republican Representative Rich McCormick speak out against Elon Musk's leadership at DOGE. But if you thought that was a shot at Elon Musk, wait until you hear what Trump had to say to him today. The president wrote on Truth Social, "DOGE has been an incredible success, and now that we have my cabinet in place, I've instructed the secretaries and leadership to work with DOGE on cost-cutting measures and staffing. As the secretaries learn about and understand, the people working for the various departments, they can be very precise as to who will remain and who will go. We say the scalpel rather than the hatchet. The combination of them, Elon, DOGE, and other great people will be able to do things at a historic level." And that post followed a cabinet meeting that seemed like it did not go well for Musk. More Perfect Union reports, Trump told the cabinet today that they're in charge of their departments, not Elon Musk. According to two administration officials, Trump said that Musk can make recommendations, but not issue unilateral decisions on staffing and policy. Musk was also in the room. So Jake, do you think Elon is going to listen to Trump's instructions?
Well, I'm not sure he has a choice, but if he has a choice, then that means he really is the president. Okay, we're gonna discuss why they did this and what it could mean in a second. But first, scalpel instead of a hatchet. I feel like I heard that somewhere before. Can you guys pull up where we might have heard that before? What is not smart is, let's just fire everybody in the Department of Energy, even though they work with nukes, and then see how it turns out. That is super stupid. Like, because guys, let's say I'm a right winger and I want to do this right. I wouldn't come in with a hatchet. I would say scalpel rather than a hatchet. Interesting. But I said that on the Young Turks. I mean, if I said that on a right wing show, he might have heard it, or in any collaboration at all. Well, let's see what if something was said earlier this week.
Look, as you and I have talked about a little bit before, including on Merit Street TV earlier today, he's taking a machete when I think he should be taking a scalpel. So I'm against waste, fraud, and abuse. We've been against it for 20 straight years. I can't stand it. Subsidies going out the door, usually to the donor class. Whoever donates to Democrats or Republicans, they get it back tenfold, 100-fold, etc. But if we're cutting before we even see what we're cutting, then by definition, to me, it can't be the right cuts.
We all agree with what you just said, that we don't like fraud, we don't like waste. There's just bloat, fat in government. We all agree with that, right? Nobody disagrees with that. Everybody agree that is fat? Okay, and what I raised my hand when I said I like DOGE, and I've been calling them out on some of the stuff that they're doing. If you make a mistake, if you, like you say, if you cut something like with veterans, or you cut things with the elderly who need medications or whatever, then you find that, you need to put it back that day. You don't need to say, okay, well, we'll study this for 60 days. No, you put it back right now.
That's interesting. And in another appearance we did on Merit TV together, Dr. Phil also said maybe a scalpel instead of a hatchet. Oh, look, Trump is now saying scalpel instead of hatchet. Look, am I saying that we unilaterally, of course we didn't just, okay, Trump listened to the Young Turks or Merit Street TV and that's how he got it. But guys, you put it into the zeitgeist and you do it in a way that actually echoes throughout the entire media ecosystem. And most importantly, of course, it's gonna get to the polls and why that happened in a second. But then all of a sudden, he's even using the same exact words we used. So do I know that that bounced into his ear? Maybe, but overall, the most important thing is when he got unpopular, all of a sudden he's walking it back. Yeah. By the way, also like we told you.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has been known to govern and do things based on what he sees on TV. So It's not the craziest idea, but let's get into what Americans think about DOGE right now. Apparently there are mixed feelings. A recent poll by Generation Lab found that young Americans are not picking up what DOGE is putting down. 87% of 18 to 34-year-olds say they've heard a lot or a little about DOGE, and 71% say they strongly or somewhat disapprove of the agency's work so far. 68% of young Republicans, unsurprisingly, approve of DOGE's work, compared with 9% of Democrats and 29% of independents. On the other hand, some recent polls are showing that Americans approve of DOGE's cuts and Musk's involvement with the agency. Let's watch Harry Enton break down the numbers. Take a look.
This to me was one of the more shocking figures that I saw. Made me go, wait a minute, hold on one second. Whoa, Americans on Trump and Joe's efforts. Musk and DOGE should influence government spending and operations. Look at this. 54%. The majority say that he and they should. How about approve of Trump trying to cut staff at government agencies? Again, you get a majority here. 51%. Democrats want to argue that the type of spending that Musk is cutting is mainly necessary programs, but that comes in at just 36%. The wasteful spending actually wins the plurality here at 42%, according to a recent Washington Post Ipsos poll.
So what's DOGE's next target? Well, yesterday, the Department of Veterans Affairs announced that it would be letting go about 15% of its workforce. That's approximately 80,000 employees. After the cuts, the department would have about the same number of workers it did in 2019. A White House spokesperson said in a statement, President Trump refuses to accept the VA bureaucracy and bloat that has hindered veterans' ability to receive timely and quality care. By making the VA workforce more efficient, President Trump and Secretary Collins will ensure greater efficiency and transparency for our nation's heroes while preserving the benefits they earned. The VA had also announced that they would be canceling 875 contracts, but they later backtracked and lowered that number to 585. The revised list of killed contracts includes those covering sterility certification for VA hospital pharmacy operations, facility air quality, and safety testing to prevent transmission of infections, and sterile processing services to decontaminate equipment and medical instruments. Also on the list, contracts providing required certification and accreditation for stroke centers and follow-up care for cancer patients. Another contract that remains scheduled for cancellation supports the National Center for PTSD, a VA entity that is the world's leading research and educational center on post-traumatic stress disorder. Also terminated is a contract that would continue a long-established technology upgrade of the Veterans Health Administration's electronic health records system. Jank, we've talked about waste and fraud. Some of these things that they're planning on cutting doesn't seem like they fall into those categories.
Well, as we've talked about in the past, they also cut billions from cancer research. They cut money to get the lead out of the pipes that gives brain damage to children. And by the way, not just in Democratic areas, although that would already be atrocious, but in Republican areas and all areas, because corporations are now totally in charge. Anything that costs them a cent, they're against it. So they'll cut. That's the actual point of this. So why are they now walking it back? Well, number one, they're starting to see Elon's poll numbers overall drop. We've showed that to you in other shows. DOGE's support in polling, we've shown in other shows that dropping. The town halls that the Republicans are dealing with. And most importantly, guys, nothing actually moves until the Republicans' specific poll numbers move. So now I guarantee you that they're taking polls in purple districts and purple states, and Republican congressmen are getting back numbers going, whoa, what happened to my polling here? Oh, it looks like people don't like it when we randomly fire a whole bunch of people. And they said they weren't gonna do Project 2025. They come in and immediately do Project 2025. Not only did people not vote for this, you promised them that you wouldn't do this to get their vote, right? So now you're chopping away. And look at how stupid this is. You're gonna cut Veterans Affairs by 80,000 people so that veterans are served less, let alone the people who are fired, but the veterans will get less service. I don't know a dumber cut than that. That's so dumb that it makes me think Democratic leadership would have come up with something like that, right? So punch yourself in the face for no reason. Good to see that the Republicans are now as strategically stupid as Democratic leadership is. So in this case, now speaking of the Democrats, what should they do? So there's a couple of different schools of thought, and I have a completely different one. One school of thought is yell at them about everything. So, you're gonna cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Boo! Don't cut anything. Super dumb. Everybody hates waste, fraud, and abuse. Don't be opposed to that. Okay. So then there's a second school of thought. Democrats like James Carville, Hakeem Jeffries, et cetera, say, let's just do nothing, just sit on our ass and wait for them to punch themselves out by doing things like this that are gonna get them unpopular. Wow, profiling courage. Okay, let me give you another alternative. Why don't Democratic leaderships, why don't they come out, again, press conferences, go on television, go on the podcast and say, waste, fraud, and abuse, glad you asked. Okay, here are the 12 programs we have found that are horrifically fraudulent, abusive, and wasteful. So for example, did you know that oil companies get $30 billion in subsidies? That's taken straight out of the pockets of the average American to pay to the richest executives in the country. Why? And let me show you the chart of where ExxonMobil, Chevron, and all these companies are. They're all top 20 companies in the world. Why do they need Joe's money in Kansas? Joe's barely surviving. He's going paycheck to paycheck, and you want him to pay ExxonMobil? I found the waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's go get those sons of bitches. Elon, you in? You in? Pentagon can't pass an audit. Here's program 1, program 2, program 3. Let's get rid of these sons of bitches. Democrats, do something. Like, take the waste, fraud, and abuse that is popular and say we're doing it, and juxtapose it to the Republicans. So we're showing you, here's the actual waste, fraud, and abuse. Whereas Elon goes, I just came in and cut everything. I'm so good at this. I cut all the veterans. Are you, brother, are you? Because all of a sudden you're taking your ass to the back row, aren't you? Because it turns out the American people didn't sign up for this. And by the way, here, let me do a little rub it in your face for the MAGA guys, okay? So everybody's in a bubble. I tell the Democrats that Joe Biden's old, they're like, you're crazy, he's not old. I tell the Republicans, hey, you know what? Super dumb cuts where you blindly hatchet people and fire people, and the main message you send out to people is, we fire everyone without even thinking about it. We hate the average American, we fire them right away. I'm like, that is gonna be a super unpopular position. Have at it, Hoss. They're like, you don't know what you're doing. No way, man. The country voted for us to totally butcher the government and destroy all these departments and cut these jobs. Did they? It doesn't look like it now, does it? Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, there's a fundamental misunderstanding, I think, from a lot of people who are cheering this on about what that's going to look like and the effects beyond just a downsizing of the federal government. I mean, when you're talking about just from one department, 80,000 people potentially and suddenly being out of work, and now spread that across the federal government, and it's not just in DC, it's around the country. You're going to see jobless claims rise. You're going to see spending in their community decline, especially in cities like DC. You're having emergency job fairs for all these people who are suddenly out of work. Career bureaucrats who, while the Republicans may stigmatize them, have largely thankless and apolitical jobs that help keep the government going. And when you talk about efficiency in services, when you're cutting the VA, the more people you have to process these claims and deliver care, the better. It will be interesting to see if people can make that connection between what we're now projected by the Atlanta Fed, a contraction in GDP in Q1 by multiple percentage points after being projected for a multiple percentage point growth. You're going to see a shrinking or a contraction of the economy. People will not have as much disposable income to spend in their communities. That'll affect small businesses. There are many downstream effects that many on the right don't seem capable of understanding, and the Democrats don't really seem capable of talking about, painting a picture of, explaining to people how these things are connected. And Cenk, to your point, when you're talking about cuts to oil subsidies, that's great. I'd love to see corn subsidies. If you really want to make America healthy again, one easy way you can do it is go after corn and how it's in everything from high fructose corn syrup to cornstarch and products. It is so bad for you. Go after that, but they don't care. They're not really worried about that. And then in the joint address, you want to talk about wasteful spending An Iron Dome for the US? Are you kidding me? That is a massive giveaway to the defense contractors and weapons manufacturers. We don't have a need for that, and it is just another way that they can further enrich the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, so a high fructose corn syrup. Yes, and on Tuesday earlier this week, when we did the joint coverage with Merit Street TV, that's Dr. Phil's network, we both talked about high fructose corn syrup and how it was a disaster. And in fact, Secretary Kennedy came on the show and we asked, hey, are you going to do those things? Then I also asked, hey, if you don't negotiate drug prices at Medicare, will you have failed? And it was an interesting answer. He said, we will lower, if we don't lower drug prices, we'll have failed. Oh, so you're not going to negotiate. You're just going to pretend you lowered some drug prices. Interesting, right? So, but the one thing that he is supposed, like if Bobby Kennedy Jr. doesn't do anything about high fructose corn syrup, well then he never meant anything. Like I get why the Medicare drug prices, that's just Washington, Trump, all of the Republicans in Congress, all the Democrats in Congress, they're all so corrupt. They just, okay, I couldn't move that corrupt mountain. But first of all, you should be honest about it. Of course, they won't be. Instead, they'll take the same money from the same companies, do the same thing. But if he doesn't even do high fructose corn syrup, then he wasn't gonna do anything at all. It was all just, and Make America Healthy Again was total nonsense. But hold on, the jury's out on that. But the reason I brought it up is because we had a town hall, mixed audience, but leaned Republican. They all agreed. Again, like, why? Why do we have this junk in our food? It's so much worse for us than sugar. And you wanna know why? Corn subsidies. 100% because of the corn subsidies. So why don't we go tackle that, okay? So please, let's be productive. And so look, do you see any other show telling you what the Democrats should actually do? Being constructive. Here's a strategy, the high fructose corn syrup, the oil subsidies, and we can list you 20 others. Isn't it amazing that the Democrats haven't figured out one of those strategies yet? Jesus, man. We need to just take over the Democratic Party because these guys are never gonna do it right.
Have you thought about running for office?
Don't get me started, brother. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.